Hi, everyone, and welcome to our pre-recorded webinar on getting started with HR service delivery. This was a live on ServiceNow webinar that was delivered in August of 2024. We are doing it so that you can watch it whenever you please. Thank you very much on that. And I'm Rue Adams. I'm the outbound product manager for the employee workflows group, which includes HR service delivery and the related products. With me today is Michael Sheridan. Michael, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Russo. Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Sheridan. I'm from the product success team. I'm in the employee workflows business unit. I'm one of the product success technical directors. So good to have you here on this webinar. Thanks, Ru.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So today we're going to cover implementing HRSD, some elements of HRSD, the employee experience and the employee center, and then we'll have some next steps, recommendations, and resources. We will not be doing a QA as we don't have anyone to ask questions of us today, but we will be covering those sort of core steps and considerations as you're thinking about getting started with HR service delivery. So we have a lot of resources available regarding HR service delivery, and most of these are on the community, on our products doc site, and other locations throughout the ServiceNow ecosystem. We just want to highlight a few of those. So first of all, we have the HR Service Delivery Welcome Guide, which is published on Community. It's really a resource to help you with planning HR service delivery and how you might implement it in your company, in your organization. There are other resources as well that are available, and we'll cover some of those next. We do have on our Now Create site, we have some success maps. This is a success map actually on ServiceNow.com. This success map will lead you through some critical phases for implementing HR service delivery, starting with sort of your envisioning phase, the skills you need, how to plan the project, what roles you might need, goes into how you want to architect your solution from case and knowledge to enable your employees to better self-serve and your agents and other HR COEs to better serve those employees. Finally, this implementation guide gets you into the validation phase where you can actually determine sort of what your go-forward plans are and how you're going to operate HR service delivery within your organization. We also have, as part of our Now Create subsite on Now Learning, we actually have a recommended implementation sequence. I know that as we engage with customers, they often say, well, what's core? What do I absolutely have to start with? What are the foundational elements, foundational applications, and where are we going to go next, right? So if we have our knowledge set up, if we have our case set up, if we're using our employee center to deliver these assets and these services to our employees, where do we go next? And that really depends on what your need is as an organization. Do you need to better enable your managers? Do you need anonymous reporting center because employees are reporting cases of harassment or other unpleasantries that you actually need to make sure that you have these capabilities enabled. And it actually takes you through some of the more advanced capabilities, such as Now Assist for HR, journey management, and some of the things that you would use to really have a fully mature implementation and solution in place. So again, this asset is a Now Create asset. There's a hyperlink at the bottom of this slide. That's really a place to go to find out what would be next for you, depending on where you are in this sort of maturity timeline. HRSD. So we want to talk a little bit about the components of HRSD. So I'm not going to read through all of the descriptions here, but we have case management, which enables your case workers, your agents to better serve the employees and fulfill employee requests. And that can range anything from, hey, I need access to our HCM solution because I forgot my password, all the way up to maybe I'm transferring from one of our offices in another country to a second or third country to work. So more complex services that you might provide. So case management is a great way for employees to initiate those requests and for your agents to fulfill them. Knowledge management. So oftentimes employees are looking for information about how do I move from one country to another? When I get there, what kind of benefits do we have? What will change for me moving from this country to that country, or what are the benefits in a given country? When do I expect to be paid? Things like that, right? Information that employees need to go about their day-to-day business. So knowledge management is a great way to fill those gaps and help employees self-help and self-serve. We also have our Employee Center products. So Employee Center Pro, for instance, is a great single pane of glass, we like to say, where employees can go and get information and get this knowledge, and also initiate those service requests that they need. We also have some capabilities that enable all of those, such as HR profiles, where your employees' core information is going to be stored into our system and helps to generate the records. So it knows who I am, and when I launch a case or initiate a request, it's going to pre-populate some of that information. It also helps with security and making sure that the right information is provisioned to me based on who I am and where I work. We have our COE tables in our HR services. So obviously, one of the things that HR organizations do is fulfill a number of different kinds of requests. Those may be payroll or compensation. It may be benefits. It can be it could be an employee relations case. So we have tables, taxonomy, and HR services, which enable you to better organize and respond to cases and prioritize cases. We also have our HR agent workspace. Again, your HR agents or your caseworkers are going to go there primarily to find out what cases have been opened and to actually work those cases and track the status of the cases while they're in progress. HR roles, security, and access. We often have questions around security and access. Many HR cases have personally identifiable information. Some of those cases may be sensitive. There may be information that you want only a core group to be able to see and not others. So HR role, security, and access is a critical area to sort of define who's going to see which information, who's going to be able to fulfill certain services. And especially when you start talking about things like employee relations cases or anonymous reporting, you definitely want to have only specific individuals or identified individuals to work those. Dashboards and reporting, how do we get better? We get better by tracking where we are today and sort of maybe having targets on where we want to go with like employee satisfaction or our fulfillment times or making sure we're meeting our SLAs. Those dashboards and reporting will help track all of that as you're moving forward and actually putting HRSD into operation. And the last thing I'm covering is integrations here very quickly at a high level, which is we also have integrations with a number of different products. Those could be learning products. Maybe that's your HCM system where you're tracking core employee data. There's a number of integrations that can be done with ServiceNow, between ServiceNow and other HR tools that you may be using. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Michael. Michael, can you please take us through HR case and knowledge management?
Awesome. Thank you, Ru. I'll hope to keep the energy going. The next slide. So some of the case and knowledge management highlights. So this is an application where we're using for our service operations, for our service delivery. So there are some things that we want to accomplish. One is enhancing the efficiency. So when we're using one interface, all of the agents are, for example, are in our configurable workspace. We have a consistency and there's some uniformity for all those agents to work the cases, be able to see the cases, see when other cases are updated, and a lot of other features that increase efficiency for that agent. Because we want our agents to be efficient, spending their time on resolving issues and supporting the business needs. The next is sharing of information. So, I could go on for days and days, the value of knowledge articles. It's a method to self-serve. It's a method to help our agents fulfill records. help our customers or their associates. And it's so we conditionalize them by using user criteria, so we could show certain articles that mean something to a specific region, department, or role, rather than showing them everything that we have in our knowledge base and kind of cluttering things up. So the separation of the knowledge articles allow us to share that information and giving the correct information to the correct persona, department, region, however we separate our knowledge base, so we can provide that information. So that's just one method of sharing the information. The next one is improve our service delivery. So we have things like report and dashboards that allow us to get a snapshot of where things are. We all have the situation where we're delivering reports to our leadership about, are we meeting our KPIs? What do our SLAs look like? So keeping us honest in our service delivery that we're doing what we're say we're doing, and then we're accounting for that. Leadership is aware of the metrics, the agents are aware of the metrics, and ultimately the employee is aware of the metrics because they can understand if their SLA is being breached, or we set expectations knowing, or an employee knowing how long it's going to take to resolve or fulfill a certain case type. And then the last thing I'll mention on this slide is protecting the employee privacy. So we're trying to strengthen security in HR for many reasons, and not just employee relations, where we have to be super refined, because it could be an HR for HR use case where all of us are on the ER team, but there's an infraction of one of those team members to another, and it's reported in ER. We're going to want to have that case not be visible to the subject of allegation to secure that case. And again, it's not just in ER, but what we're trying to do is protect the employee's privacy by having a scoped application that we further secure it by way of ACLs and other methods. So what we have here is just a case management view of the HR agent workspace. And some things that I'll mention here is on the upper left, you'll see what we call the landing page. The landing page is like our dashboards. When I open the workspace, I go to the landing page. I could see what SLAs are at risk, so I could focus on those if that was my initiative, for that day. I could focus on high priority cases, and you could see a little color coding. Like all cases, we're a green. High priority is showing a little bit where we have to give some focus to it just by basis of the color. So my point being is that visually we're drawing the agent to something that needs to be addressed. It's just a way that we could highlight something that, hey, you might want to treat this with some urgency. So that's our first glance. So right away, I could see some things that need to be done. In the lower right-hand image, you have the HR agent workspace itself. And just in a call today, I mentioned how the workspace allows me to tab multiple cases open at one time. So in one browser, I could be viewing 6 or 7 cases and then toggling through them as I'm doing my updates. That's just one of the plethora of features that we have around the agent workspace, so we could give focus to an agent, get that efficiency that I talked about earlier, because I don't have to open multiple browsers. I could tab all of those cases I'm working on within the HR agent workspace, the configurable HR agent workspace. What's great about this interface as well is the side panel. So I have what's showing now is the at a glance. So at a glance, I could see who the employee is. I could see other things like their start date, things that are important to the organization, maybe even a phone number if I wanted to reach out them to directly. So it's just a way that we could give a snapshot to give more information to the agent so they could better resolve the case, ultimately with better efficiency. So the last thing I'll say here is HR agent workspace isn't a new concept. The configurable workspace is I'll call it an enhancement from the legacy workspace. So it's something that we recommend for customers to consume so they can have that uniformity, efficiency, and operational excellence that we're looking for them to accomplish. The knowledge management within HR service delivery, it has multiple purposes. The purpose of me showing this on the slide is so you could see different areas of knowledge, one being the knowledge bases. So it's typical that customers are putting their HR knowledge in an HR knowledge base, their IT knowledge in an IT knowledge base. And this is just depicting the different knowledge bases that we offer out of the box in order to facilitate that separation. And with that separation, it makes it a little bit easier to put user criteria on the knowledge base instead of article by article. That introduces a lot more maintenance. When it's at the knowledge base, we could have it, for everything that's HR or everything that's HR in a certain region. Some good examples for you there out of the box. The middle image is just to show you some different areas, some different categories of knowledge. So I could use that as like a faceted search and filter my search. I'm just looking for something within benefits that matches my search criteria, or I want to look at all the benefits. I'm brand new to the company and I just want to go through the knowledge articles to understand how the organization operates before it becomes an urgent need for me. So that's a way that we could navigate through the knowledge base by using those categories and only seeing the knowledge that is authored for my persona, my department, anything that would match my conditions of any of those, and many more. The last image is just of an article itself, and this is one that's a FAQ. So we have different templates within articles, within knowledge, that allow you to tailor it more towards a FAQ or another type of template in order to give it more meaning. So, if I had a normal knowledge article that was an FAQ, if I had a Q&A on the article, it may seem a bit confusing. So I could set that up as a Q&A or a FAQ, sorry, where it makes more sense. And I could, sometimes we find those are beneficial because I could search for questions and I could see, on this page, more than a handful more that may apply to me. It's just a good method to use in getting the knowledge out there and having it being a good experience being consumed by, all those that are using our knowledge. And the last thing I'll say about knowledge is, there's KCS standards that give a lot of details around knowledge, how to set it up. We do have some published best practices for knowledge management that if you're starting with knowledge, even if you're already existing in a knowledge base within ServiceNow, it's a good tool to use to understand, what industry best practices are. So one of the most important things about HR are the HR roles and security. And this is just an admin view of some of those roles. So being a scoped application, right away, we're increasing the security. It's not global. You have to have a scoped role in order to do things or see things within that application, and that application being HR service delivery. This is a good depiction of the roles that you get out of the box. So we have total rewards. Total rewards may be just for the COEs that are using total reward cases. So we may want to refine our total reward COE to just a specific role or group. With this in this image, we're showing the groups, which is the best practice way to apply a role. I've seen in the past, in the early days of ServiceNow, where an admin is giving a role to one user, giving a role to another user without using that group hierarchy. And sometimes you lose the ability to keep it under control. So we recommend that you're using roles with groups. So once you add a user to a group, they get those roles that are inherited. One of the examples would be maybe for HR payroll, I'm getting the role of the HR basic for HR in order to do things within the application. HR basic being the role that gives knowledge, case, HR profile viewer. It gives a bunch of different roles that are specific to HR functionality to make sure that your agents have the right roles for the right reason. So the last thing I'll say is the security within HR is by roles, by the different ACLs and things that are looking at those roles. So very important that that you realize that this is a scoped application. So I need one of those roles in order to see or modify any HR data. HR services, and I like to call the HR services the heartbeat of what we're doing in HR service delivery. So when we create our HR services, this is where we specify, who that HR service is available for. And when I say who, we put, HR criteria, we put a condition to say, well, these 401k HR services are just for US employees, and it would be different per region is a way that you could set those up. We like to keep these global, and we use things like checklists or fulfillment instructions, probably fulfillment instructions more, to then conditionalize how we're working a case differently from one region to another. So we may have procedures for EMEA that are 1, 2, 3, 4 in fulfilling an HR service, and it may be different for AMS. So HR services are what really drive our HR cases based on what services we're delivering, what COE they reside in, and then all the configurations just to make things easier. And in this case, you see that for the 401k retirement plan, we have a template that's pre-populating some fields. It could also be doing the auto assignment. So there's a lot of things that we could do with the HR services and are very important to get these right coming out of the gate. If you're an organization that really don't know or very familiar with all the services that you support from an HR service delivery perspective, it's better to start off small and build on those rather than to try to boil the ocean and confusing the situation for employees. Meaning that if I had 3,000 HR services, there's a lot of HR services for me to sift through in order to get the right request. If we have HR services that we know we put a lot of thought into as we built them and then built on top of them, you're gonna avoid the clutter and give a better experience to your employees. The last thing I'll say is there's a lot of configurations that go within the HR service. We have a lot of community articles, blogs, YouTube videos around HR services and the setup of COEs itself to put you in a better position so you're starting your HR service delivery implementation off right. And HR dashboards goes without saying, this is how we report to our leadership, report to our managers, how we're delivering against those HR services. And I mentioned earlier that, this is our first indication on how things are going. When I go to the HR agent workspace, I go to the landing page. Typically, we see a lot of customers that are presenting these dashboards as soon as an agent logs in, because we want to set the focus and give them a snapshot of how we're doing, as well as deliver to our leadership to how we're meeting our SLAs or do we have metrics that we're proud of? So HR dashboards, and I'll throw in reports as well, very important piece of our HR service delivery and keeping in tune with how we're delivering those services. I will skip on to Employee Center Pro next, and we'll talk about some of those details. So some of the Employee Center highlights, one is enhancing the employee experience. I like to call this as the front door or the portal to the employee experience. This is how we deliver the experience to an employee when they're looking for information. So we give the portal, and sometimes we even tailor the portal to the persona, like the Alumni Service Center, still employee center, but more tailored towards an alumni. And then we're supporting the hybrid workforce from anywhere. So I could, be camping, and then I may get an approval that I that I need to approve. I may get a case that I want to look into because before I left for the weekend, I was investigating and working with the customer. So I could support or be supported by Employee Center, on the go. I could pull up my mobile browser and engage with Employee Center and have the same look and feel, but just on a smaller scale from my mobile device. So we're really transforming how work gets done and then meeting people, being employees, agents, customers, where they need to be. And then we're connecting employees in moments that matter. So we're showing, things like company news. We have a company event coming up next month, and we want to let you know so you can prepare to stay after work to, engage in the festivities. Company news, this is how we're doing on the market. We want you to be proud of how we're doing on the market. So we're going to put that in company news or have a stock ticker. So that's a way that we can deliver that information through the content that we have with Employee Center, but Employee Center still being that portal where I'm delivering all of this information. So the last thing I'll say about this slide and something to remember is this is our first impression to our employees, our new hires, depending, but the first time that they're accessing our portal is going to give them an insight into our company. And we really want to put our best foot forward. It's kind of like in the military, shining your shoes. It's just showing that you put that little extra something to give a better appearance, sorry. So Employee Center Pro as the employee destination site. So we do have customers that are using Employee Center Pro as their intranet. So I'm going to Employee Center Pro for all I'm doing for the company, not just for things specific to ServiceNow. So our goal with Employee Center Pro is to increase the engagement. We want employees to go to the Employee Center and be able to do work, see information. There's little things that we could do. If it was maybe it was somebody returning from paternity leave and they log into Employee Center Pro for the, day one being back, we can present a message, welcome back, how are things going being a new parent? So those type of things give us a sense that, we have a friend out there, and not to be cheesy, but it really can change the perception of an individual, or maybe put them on a good path to where maybe they were having a bad day, logged into the portal and saw that somebody saw it was their first day back and, is wishing them, a good day back at work. We encourage portal consolidation. So we like to unify the portal. I don't want to have to go to a different portal to do IT type tasks, a different portal to do facilities type tasks, a different portal for workspace or workplace type tasks, and then a different portal for HR. We want to deliver that unified experience in one portal. And this is what we recommend in unifying that portal to deliver one experience. We all know that we go to different applications that, really do the same thing, but give a different experience. And wouldn't it be nice that if all ServiceNow, I got the same experience for all the applications or all the engagements that I need to do on ServiceNow, I get the same experience. And I could become familiar with it. It's not like it's a different interface and I have to do something way different for IT than I'm doing for HR. It's just different applications on the platform. We have actionable items. So it could be tax time, and we're, send out a campaign to have employees, download their W-2 or file their taxes, just a reminder. And then we could have an actionable item on it. So we're engaging employees along with, delivering an experience. And I mentioned about the unified portal, and that's more integration across systems and applications. It's the power of the platform. We don't view us engaging, IT in order to get a laptop as part of onboarding as an integration. It just all sits on the same platform, beautifully. And then lastly, we're engaging the employees. We have communities, we have the employee forums, we have people search, news, events, campaigns. So we have a lot of content that we can deliver based on what's provided with widgets that we have in Employee Center Pro. And the last thing I'll say is that personally, I have seen portals that are really engaging, and I've heard a lot of good feedback about employees getting a good feeling by, the content that they have within their company. I'm getting, our stock tickers, I'm getting company updates of what's going on. I'm getting updates on when the company barbecue is. So all those things are engaging the employees, which is what we're trying to do with Employee Center Pro. And then we have curated experiences based on the unified taxonomy. So for those that are not familiar with the taxonomy, that's how we're separating IT from HR. And not to get too technical, but from a configuration standpoint, this is how we, put walls between what HR is doing and IT is doing as far as it comes with a unified portal. On the left side, you see the home page where I could browse topics. This is what we call the mega menu, where you see all of these items that I can select from. And then we have other things like popular topics. So we could, give a focus. This is where a lot of our employees are going. And in the middle image that you see there is the dynamic topic page. So although in the early days, there's individuals that thought these were knowledge articles that just were super fancy and was a great thing to have, but there were really dynamic topic pages where we could support the content on a dynamically created page to where it's not static. And it could be we could have things that are specific to technology services like you see in the image, and just having the images and the outline just gives a better look and feel. And then lastly, we have the content page. So we can access the content that we need through that topic page. Ultimately, in this example, it ends up with a catalog item for a MacBook. So again, just trying to deliver the experience through that unified taxonomy. And in this example, I'm requesting an Apple laptop, but it could have been that I'm requesting an HR service. It's just a matter of, what my desire is on that unified portal at the time. So the takeaway from this slide is make sure you put some thought into your design of your taxonomy. And another item that you want to build on, start small and build on it, so you're keeping the employee experience forefront in your mind as you traverse through your configurations or your design. And then we could deliver the targeted actionable communications. So this is just an example where we're playing a video of our CEO on having a conversation with Mad Money. So, or CNBC in this case. It's a way that we could deliver more of an experience. And again, these could be conditionalized by using an audience where we're showing certain content to certain individuals, based on persona, region, department, et cetera, et cetera. We can deliver multifaceted campaigns across channels. And, some of those examples are portal, email, SMS, text, or Microsoft Teams. And we can bundle and stage those campaigns based on predefined triggers. So it's more of the process of authoring and publishing that we could do, and really a simple configuration, but a lot of power that it delivers. And then lastly, the targeted communications and campaigns based on the employee profile. So I don't want to send a download your W-2 at tax time to an employee that's not in AMS or not in the US or wherever you do not need to download a W-2. So we're targeting that content to give that, that better experience for the employee based on, in this case, based on a location. So the big question is, well, how do I implement Employee Center Pro? And just like with HR service delivery or employee service delivery as a whole, we start by documenting that vision. So what are we trying to accomplish? And then we factor in the value and principles, including KPIs. I find a lot of implementations where I would ask, what are the success measures of this deployment? And I would hear crickets. And that's really critical. How do we know we're going to be successful with this deployment? Is it based on employee feedback? Is it going to be based on KPIs, the level of engagement? So all critical things that we need to map out before we start our implementation to make sure that we're going down the right road. And, in my younger days, we would talk about the 5 P's of success. Prior planning prevents poor performance. So planning before you and designing before you build and then implement is critical. And I won't go through all the little sections of this slide, but you could see what we're talking about here: the vision and value, the foundational services, the implementation roles, supporting applications, definitely the governance, the organizational change management and enablement. Those are all important pieces of a successful implementation. And this is a good image and good information for you to have, which is also available in our Now Create. It's good for you to have to make sure that you're starting off on the right foot. And what we have here is a few different areas where we have additional resources, whether that's a webinar, whether that's office hours, Employee Center Academy, the Employee Center Product Hub. I would just recommend that you scan each of these codes in order to find out when the next webinar or when the next Employee Center Academy is. And we kind of give some details here, but more for the ones with quarterly. So you could make sure that you're a part of all these. I even attend these myself. I always learn new information, what other customers are doing, like the Employee Center Customer Show and Tell webinar. I would highly encourage you to scan these and attend these where possible. Next slide. You're muted, Ru.
I clicked the button and it didn't unmute me. All right. So I'll cover the features outline the features of HRSD. I think we've covered a little bit of this earlier in this presentation, but I kind of want to just come back to it to start to close this out. Case management, obviously a centralized workspace to manage all of your cases, to track cases, to see what the cases are about, which HR services are being requested, what support do employees need. Obviously, one of the key elements of case management is the fact that many of the cases you may receive, as I have, both as a customer and as a consultant before joining ServiceNow, we used to find that there were a lot of cases because the information was either not available to the employee or the employee couldn't find the information that was available. And that's where you kind of step over into the knowledge space where it's like, hey, we have a lot of employees asking similar questions. Can we get a knowledge article out on our Employee Center portal where they can come in and see the answer themselves, maybe take an action themselves from that article, and they don't need to open a case. So obviously that whole case avoidance, case deflection, and helping employees resolve at what we call tier 0, which is before they engage an agent. That's sort of the nirvana state that we want to be in. So, case management. If you're using email to manage all your cases, then you're probably not in the best space because you can't say, hey, we get 1,000 requests a month for medical benefits responses. But once you start to manage those cases in an organized way, then you can start to see where your opportunities are to improve your service delivery. Knowledge management, Michael talked about it a little bit with user criteria and targeting. You can get the right information to the right employee at the right time. One thing I'll just say in addition to that is the governance. So you can track feedback and respond to feedback, and maybe a link is broken in an article in a knowledge-based article, and you want to go fix that link. You'll get that feedback, and you can go take care of that. The other thing is oftentimes there's a capability to set a valid to date in your knowledge base, which says, hey, each article expires after a certain period of time. The good part of that is you're not going to have those what we would call stale articles that were maybe published 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and employees read that and they're not sure if that information is still up to date. You can make sure that all your content is up to date and applicable to this moment. So having some governance around that knowledge and targeting that knowledge to the right people. So I get the information that's important to me as an employee, and not the information for maybe employees in another country or employees with a different role. And then obviously we've just covered the Employee Center Pro, the ability to target information to employees, to basically expose actions like approvals or feedback that someone needs right into the portal, to target campaigns to certain employee groups at certain times, to provide that knowledge information to help them, again, self-help or self-serve. Employee Center Pro is a great place to have those interactions begin, and that may lead to employees helping themselves, or it may be where they initiate a case or a service request. So moving on from there, just some guidance, high level. Obviously, we have the now create implementation guide. We showed you some other resources that are available to get started. Define your business outcomes, Michael. I think you mentioned setting your KPIs, knowing what success looks like for you as an organization. What channels are you going to give employees information? How are you going to measure the success? Maybe the consumption. Are employees getting information through Microsoft Teams or mobile? Are they at their desktop? What if you have deskless workers, maybe in a factory or a medical center, for instance? How are they accessing information? But knowing what you're trying to measure, knowing what results you expect. I always say you want to do as much at tier zero as possible, and then go up the tiers from there. Hopefully you're shifting everything into employee self-service and self-help versus spending a lot of time helping employees with every single question they have. Determine your scope, right? So what are you going to deliver? What are you going to deliver first? Where are you going to deliver it? This can take a lot of different forms. Maybe you want to release content for a specific region or a specific country, and then build on top of that. As Michael said, you might then add additional countries and additional country information. Maybe you want to do it for a specific group or specific roles. And then again, what are your success measures? And then create the rollout plan. Where are you going first and when? How are you going to get feedback? How are you going to improve? What's your sort of management for HR service delivery? How are you going to track whether or not you're fulfilling the needs of the employees within SLAs, or do you need to focus more in one area or one region? Do you need to focus more on one COE? So having a rollout plan that helps you determine sort of where and when is going to be critical to your early success. And then as you continue to build or add additional resources, you want to continue to have plans for the future. And obviously, we do have regular family releases and regular store releases. So the other thing you have to consider is sort of you'll do an initial rollout, but then you also have upgrades that you'll be doing over time, and you want to make sure you have plans for those as well. Skills, yeah. So our Now Learning site is a great place to get some basic skills. We have the Human Resources Implementation certification, a ServiceNow Administration certification, an Application Developer certification. We have a lot of resources out on Now Learning. There are other resources available. Michael mentioned the Academy series that we have for Employee Center. We are bringing back our HRSD Academy series into next year, where we'll focus on a lot of topics related to our products and how to install, implement our products, deploy our products as well as operate those products most efficiently with leading practices. So definitely look at the different resources we have. Those Academy series can be found on listed on our community site. But we also have the Now Learning, which is our certification site. So definitely you want to build your skill, your expertise, your knowledge, and we have resources to do that. Deploy and manage. This is just some high-level guidance. Again, we always say if you can start with a sub-production instance, so you're not live with all the employees. You have sort of a siloed place where you can go and test what you're trying to do. So making sure that an employee has an employee center portal. If I'm emulating that employee, you know, that employee can find the information they're searching for. They can click to open a case. That case is then on the back end showing up in a list of cases. You do all that in sub-production first, making sure everything works the way you anticipate it before you push it into production. The second step there in the middle, who gets access? So you may early on limit access to, again, specific groups or regions or countries, maybe specific roles. And then what is we like to say minimum lovable product. I know people say also minimum viable product, but it's what's really going to drive those employees to come back, right? So I go to a portal, and this has happened to me before. I go to a website and I think this website is terrible. It's hard to use. I'd rather just call the company and have a conversation. You want to make sure that if you're going to make this investment, that your employees find the information they're looking for and that they really enjoy the experience and find the experience valuable. So we love to say, you know, what's your minimum lovable product? And the great place to find out what that might entail is actually ask the employees, what are you doing? What sort of services are you requesting from HR? And make sure that information is available at your initial release. And then last is your management and operations plan and your roadmap. You know, earlier we talked about the Now Create sort of implementation map. And that's really like, what are we doing first and where are we going? What's our next step and what's our steps after that? So having that, and then also knowing how are you going to manage your knowledge and keep it current? How are you going to manage your case assignments and make sure that you're constantly evolving and getting better at both fulfilling those cases, those service requests, as well as, you know, keeping your knowledge fresh and making sure it serves the needs of the employees. Yeah, related live on ServiceNow, we have a series called Live on ServiceNow on Academy Sessions. If you go to the community and you look at Live on ServiceNow events, you're going to find that we've essentially broken down a series of events by sort of product group, including HR service delivery, workplace service delivery. There's an employee center series of events. So you can come up here and whether it's our group and our team and the resources we provide to you in the webinars like we're delivering right now, or whether it's some other application from ServiceNow that you're using, you can always find a ServiceNow webinar or other event listed and then go attend those and learn more about our products. The community, you know, I love the community. Part of my responsibility is to make sure content on the community is up to date. And so I like to say this is one of the first places you should start to find information. This is also a great place where you can interact with other ServiceNow employees as well as your peers. So there is the ability to ask questions and have those questions answered through the community. You can even get permissions to publish your own content out on the community. So if you have a leading practice that you want to share, you can share it. And you can, again, find HR Service Delivery out there and Employee Center, as well as some of our other products have their own, we call them product hubs, have their own product hubs where you can find information and engage with both ServiceNow and partners and your peers. Lastly, that we have some other places where you can go find information. So I'm a big fan of Customer Success Center. There's usually some good guidance out there. Now Create, you saw a couple slides earlier that highlight some of the information through our Now Create program and the assets that they provide. We have our delivery webinars and meetups. There's also the product doc site, which is valuable and can give you some information about the product and the scope of the products and how they function. So a number of great resources that are available. Most of these resources are cross-connected. So if you go to community, you can look at the map at the top of the page, and you can see all these other resources that you can find and access. Realize value and further your goals. So yeah, we have our ServiceNow Impact team. We have our training and certifications that we had mentioned earlier, and we have expert services to come in and consult with you. Product success, the team that Michael's on, also works with customers who need additional assistance. So we have a number of teams focused on your success. If you have questions, talk to your account teams. They will make sure the right people get engaged with you to help you be successful and move your organization forward with our applications, including the suite of HRSD applications. With that, I would like to say thank you, Michael. Any closing statement from you?
No, I'd like to say thank you and wish you luck on your future implementations for those that are implementing and for those that are already live. I like to see your growth. So, look forward to talking with you, at the next knowledge of how far you've come with HR service delivery. So thanks, Ru.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And definitely, love to continue to engage with you. Definitely reach out on the community and let us know how you're doing and let us know what questions you have. We're around and we're watching. So thank you so much again, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.